Okay, the face BBL. Check it out. This is where I take the buccal fat from here and then we add a little bit of fat to the upper third. So it's creating those peaks and valleys. That's what gets people looking sharp. So we take the fat from here, we put some fat here. I don't typically use the buccal fat, we can, but I like the fat from the submental spot really because then you can kind of saddle that mandible. That's really what people like. I'm gonna do a little bit extra in the mid face here and a little bit extra in the temple on that side to pull up there and to even out that. So. Yeah, so I mean, this is permanent because it's your own fat, so it stays as long as here as it would stay in your belly. You see the fat auto separate? Like there's the fat, this is mostly tumescent and a little bit of blood. This is a 22 gauge cannula actually. They have a 20 gauge, but since we morselize the fat this fine, we can go this small. Micronizing, morselizing the fat into 1.2 millimeter size globules. But this has stem cells, this has, you know, the benefits of this has a little PRP quality because there's blood where I harvested. We're gonna do a little poke, okay?
Anyone would be against that.
A little poke there, it shouldn't hurt. It really bothered her really up close to her eye. That's why I had to get it very fine. And you can see me under the skin there, right? Look, I'm right up in the canthus there. The buccal fat is this deep fat. It's deep to the skin, it's deep to the muscle, deep to the artery, deep to the parotid gland, the parotid duct, so it allows this smooth contour. The fat transfer to the upper third goes just subcutaneous, so just under the skin because you want to create that peak. It's all about having volume in the right spots. You want structure and volume in the right spots to kind of create those peaks, those valleys, those shadows, and those curves. So you check out a few people here. You don't even really know what happened. Boom! You just see a little more contour, you see a little more sharpness, you see a little more shadow. And you really got to frame the eye to make it look nice. You're doing great. She's going to be really puffy, you know, for a week or two. Beautiful. I just flush it once through this cannula. The reason to do that is just to really make sure she's getting the maximum amount. You're not putting air, and to make sure our consistency is proper. The taking the fat from down here is coming from just under the skin, superficial to the platysmal muscle typically. Saddle the mandible, and then they like a kind of a V shape. So if you look at her frontal view, what bothered her was she was a little heavy in this lower third, so we added a little fat to the outer third, we created that buccal concavity, and then we gave that jawline a little bit of a sharpness. She actually got a little chin implant as well. So the face BBL, it's true, it's the transfer of fat from one spot to another.
Yeah, I would say it was less painful than I expected.
Woohoo!
I didn't even take the
narcotic. We didn't do the pain med because she's gonna take a cab home, so I told her we should hang off on that, and then if she needs it later, which would be unlikely, I told her she can take them home.
Yeah, but even without that, I thought it was pretty painless, minimal pain.
And right now she's really puffy. I put in about 6 milliliters on each side. Probably 3 of those is gonna live, which is about what she needed, so that's why it's overdone right now. It'll settle over a week. It's about creating a small shadow here, a light reflex here, shadow here. So light reflex, shadow, light reflex, shadow. That's what people like to see. That's what people do post-production, and they can edit those. That's what people do with makeup. That's what people do with highlighter, concealer. They're creating those kind of shadows, highlights, reflections. There is subplatysmal fat. That's the deep neck lift. So if we're going deep to the platysmal muscle, which I do, which we can do. Listen, one of the key points, I can do all of these different things. We can manipulate it in every different layer, but you want to make sure the person's in the right layer to get you the peak or the valley to look the nicest. So if you try to create a valley doing subcutaneous lipo or doing Kybella in the face, it can look a little odd. So when somebody looks odd, typically the injector, the surgeon, whomever, is trying to make up ground in the wrong layer. You know, surgery is all about layers. It's about being in the right layer, manipulating those layers, manipulating that volume in the right spot. So it's complicated to do, but in theory it makes sense, right? You want to make sure you're tweaking everything in the right spot. And that's what I do with the face BBL. Okay, all you gotta do is subscribe. You're gonna feel hotter as soon as you press the button.